Picture this: the Wild West of the early internet. Browsers are at war, developers are caught in the middle, and everything is chaos. Well, out of that chaos, one framework rose up to try and bring some order. It was elegant, it was brilliant, and as we'll see, it was tragically flawed. Its name was Prototype.
Yeah, I'm talking about Prototype. And look, if you got into coding in the last, say, 10 years, you might have never even heard of it. But trust me, for a whole generation of us, Prototype wasn't just a tool, it was the library. It was the thing that made building for the modern web feel possible for the very first time.
Okay, so to really get why Prototype was such a huge deal, we gotta hop in a time machine. We're going back to the early 2000s. And you have to forget everything you know about web development today. It was messy. Every browser was its own little kingdom with its own set of rules, and writing code was just an exercise in pure frustration.
Seriously, imagine trying to build a house, but the laws of physics are different in every single room. That's what it was like. Internet Explorer did things one way, Netscape Navigator did them another, and trying to get them to play nice, that was basically your entire job. No standard tools, just a big old mess of bugs and quirks.
So yeah, writing JavaScript back then was like walking through a minefield. You wanted to do something simple, like grab an element on the page, get ready for this long, clunky command. You wanted your cool new feature to work everywhere? Huh, good luck with that. And don't even get me started on Ajax. This was the magic that made pages dynamic, right? But it was so ridiculously complex, it felt like you needed a wizard's spell book to make it work.
And then, into all of this chaos comes Prototype. And it was like a beacon of light. It wasn't just offering a bunch of bug fixes, it was offering a whole new philosophy. It came with this amazing promise. What if we could bring simplicity, power, and yeah, even a little bit of joy back to writing code for the web? So this thing pops up in February 2005, created by Sam Stephenson. And this wasn't some project cooked up in a lab. No. Prototype was born from the trenches. It was forged in the fires of a massive, super influential project you've probably heard of, Ruby on Rails. Its mission was simple and urgent: solve the real, painful problems that developers were hitting every single day.
And that right there was its whole reason for being. The idea was to be like a layer of polish on the rough, jagged edges of the web. Just hide all the browser insanity so that we, the developers, could finally stop pulling our hair out and actually focus on what we wanted to do: build cool stuff.
So how did it do it? What was the secret sauce? Well, the magic started with a couple of clever, super intuitive shortcuts that completely changed the game.
Okay, just look at this. This one little change tells the entire story. On the left, you've got the old way, document.getElementById. It's a mouthful. On the right, a single $sign. That's it. It was clean, it was simple, and honestly, it felt like a superpower. It was just revolutionary.
And the hits just kept on coming. You had the FR function to instantly grab a value from a form. Super handy. But the real game changer? The $sign. $sign. This let you use CSS selectors, the way you style things, to find elements in your JavaScript. This had never been done before, and it was huge. It just made so much sense.
And all that power led to incredible moments like this one. Check out this line of code. You're basically saying, hey, find me every link that has the class pulsate, and then make them all, well, pulsate. One single easy-to-read line to do something that would have been a nightmare before. This was unheard of.
But it wasn't just about cool visual effects. Prototype was about making pages feel alive, and that meant taking on that dark art we talked about, Ajax. It gave you this simple Ajax object. It had tools like request and updater that just handled it. All the weird browser differences, gone. All of a sudden, any developer could start building those dynamic, modern-feeling websites.
But you know how these stories go. Every hero has a tragic flaw. And for Prototype, its greatest strength, the very thing that made it feel so elegant and magical, was also the thing that would eventually bring it down. The culprit was something called DOM extension. A less flattering name for it, monkey patching. See, instead of creating its own separate tools, Prototype just added its new tricks directly onto the browser's built-in objects. It felt seamless, kind of like teaching an old dog new tricks. But here's the catch. That's not your dog, and you have no idea what the owner, the browser makers, are going to do with it next.
And this right here became a huge debate. It was two totally different ways of thinking. Prototype's philosophy was to extend the native objects, to change them right at the source. But its big rival, jQuery, took a different path. It decided to wrap them. It would create a brand new jQuery object that just held the original element inside, leaving it completely untouched. One way was intrusive, the other was, well, respectful. And that single choice made all the difference.
And don't think this was some nerdy behind-the-scenes argument. Oh no, this was a huge debate in the developer world. The Prototype team defended their choice for years, and they made some good points. But the web was changing so fast, and the cracks in that monkey-patching foundation were starting to get bigger and bigger.
Because here's the thing, messing with stuff you don't own is just risky. It led to weird, hard-to-find bugs across different browsers. And what happens if a browser decides to add a new feature with the exact same name as one of Prototype's? Bam! Collision. Plus, it wasn't great for performance. That magic? Yeah, it had a hidden price tag.
And so, the inevitable happened. The web grew up. Safer, more robust libraries, especially jQuery, started to take over. And Prototype, our hero, started to fade from the spotlight. Its time was coming to an end.
How far did it fall? Well, by 2021, its usage had dropped to just 0.6%. For a library that basically defined an entire era of the web, that's a staggering decline.
But hold on, this isn't a sad story. It's really a thank you note, because Prototype's ideas, they never died. In fact, they're everywhere. That $ shortcut, the idea of using CSS selectors in your JavaScript, making Ajax easy, these weren't just stepping stones for jQuery. They are literally baked into the DNA of the modern web. They influenced pretty much everything that came after.
So what's the big takeaway here? Prototype was that brilliant, flawed hero that our industry needed. It dragged web development kicking and screaming into a new era. It showed us a glimpse of the future, and its mistakes taught us incredibly valuable lessons on how to get there safely.
You know, this whole story is a cycle that we see over and over again in tech, right? A genius idea solves a huge problem, it becomes the way everyone does things, and then eventually it gets replaced. Which kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What's the best practice we all swear by today that's going to be tomorrow's controversial monkey patching?